The throne room of the empire stretched for nearly 1,000 feet. Giant pillars made of blue crystal rose from the floor and touched the ceiling far above. Light from 3 suns poured through the windows and made everything glow like it was alive. This was the heart of an empire that had conquered 40 star systems. This was where Queen ruled over billions of souls. She sat on her throne and watched the doors at the far end of the hall. Her 4 arms rested on the armrests of her seat. Her skin was the color of deep ocean water and her eyes were like golden coins. She stood 8 feet tall when she rose, and her muscles could bend steel bars without effort. They were the strongest species in the known galaxy. They had never lost a war. They had never bowed to anyone. Today she would meet her future husband, a human. The thought made her want to laugh. The humans were a young species from a small planet called Earth. They had only discovered space travel 200 years ago. They were short, fragile, and lived barely 100 years. Their bones broke easily. Their skin tore like paper. They needed to breathe a specific mixture of gases or they would die. They were, by all measures, one of the weakest intelligent species ever discovered. But the Galactic Council had demanded this marriage. The humans had something they needed. They had technology for growing food in dead soil, medicine that could cure diseases the doctors could not treat, and engineers who could build machines that seemed to work like magic. The council had decided that instead of simply taking what they wanted, there would be peace. There would be trade. There would be a marriage between the queen and a human representative. Had agreed because she was wise enough to know that even the strongest empire needed allies, but she did not have to like it. The doors opened. A group of humans walked into the throne room. There were 12 of them, all dressed in simple gray uniforms. They looked so small compared to the guards who stood along the walls. They looked like children walking among giants. One human walked at the front of the group. He was a man with brown hair and gray eyes. He was not tall, not short. He was not muscular, not thin. Everything about him seemed average. He walked with his hands at his sides, his steps calm and measured. He did not look around at the magnificent throne room. He did not stare at the guards with their weapons. He just walked forward, his eyes fixed on the queen. His name was Daniel Cole. He was 34 years old. He had been born in a coastal city on Earth and had spent most of his life studying the creatures of the ocean. He had joined the military when he was young, served for 10 years, and then returned to his peaceful life of research. When the government asked for volunteers to marry an alien queen and live far from Earth forever, he had raised his hand. Nobody quite understood why. Daniel stopped at the bottom of the steps that led to the throne. The other humans stopped behind him. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Queen studied the man. She used her royal sight, a gift that all rulers possessed, to read his body. His heart was beating slowly. His breathing was steady. His muscles were relaxed. There was no fear in him. This was strange. Every other species trembled when they stood before her. Even the bravest warriors from conquered worlds had shown some sign of nervousness. This human showed nothing. "You are Daniel Cole," she said. Her voice filled the hall like thunder. "I am, Your Majesty," he replied. His voice was calm and clear. "You understand what this marriage means. You will leave your planet forever. You will live here among my people as my consort. You will never see your family again. You will never walk on your again. You will belong to the Empire until you die." Daniel nodded. "I understand." "And you agree to this willingly?" "I do." Leaned forward on her throne. "Why? Your government did not force you. Our spies confirmed this. You volunteered. Why would any creature choose to leave everything they know?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Because someone had to, and I decided it should be me." This answer did not satisfy the queen. She looked at him more closely. His face was weathered by sun and wind. His hands had calluses on them. There were small scars on his knuckles that she almost missed. He stood with his weight balanced evenly, something soldiers did without thinking. But he was not tense. He was simply ready. Ready for what she did not know. "You are not afraid," she observed. "No, Your Majesty." "Why not?" Daniel met her golden eyes without looking away. "Fear does not help anyone. It does not solve problems. It does not build bridges between peoples. I am here to build a bridge. Fear would only get in the way." One of the advisors laughed from the side of the room. He was an old male named, and he had served 3 rulers before. "The human thinks he can build bridges," he said. "How will he do that when he cannot even lift a stone?" A few other advisors chuckled. Daniel turned his head slightly to look at. He did not say anything. He just looked. Something in that look made the old advisor stop laughing. He was not sure why. The human had not threatened him. The human had not even changed his expression. But something in those gray eyes made uncomfortable in a way he could not explain. Notice this exchange. It was interesting. "The wedding will take place in 7 days," she announced. "Until then, the human delegation will stay in the guest quarters. They will be treated with respect. Anyone who harms them will answer to me personally." The advisors bowed, the guards saluted, the audience was over. As the humans turned to leave, Daniel paused. He looked back at the Queen one more time. "Thank you for this opportunity, Your Majesty," he said. "I hope that one day you will see that my people have more to offer than you expect." Then he walked away. Watched him go. There was something about that human that she could not quite understand. He was weak. She could break him with one hand. He was mortal. He would age and die while she remained young for centuries. He was alone on a world full of beings who saw him as lesser. And yet he was not afraid. That night stood on her balcony and looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, in a distant arm of the galaxy, was Earth, a small blue planet full of small, fragile creatures. Her spies had sent reports about humans. They were curious beings who asked too many questions. They were social creatures who formed strong bonds with each other and even with other species. They were stubborn and refused to quit even when they should. The reports also said they were weak. Their bodies could not compete with most other species. They needed tools to do what others could do with bare hands. They were soft, breakable things. But something in Daniel Cole made her wonder if the reports had missed something. She shook her head. She was being foolish. He was just a human. The marriage was just politics. She would do her duty, keep the peace, and that would be the end of it. There was nothing special about Daniel Cole. She was wrong, but she would not discover how wrong she was for many months to come. The wedding was the most watched event in the Empire's history. 3 months had passed since the wedding. Queen had expected her human husband to be a burden. She had expected him to complain about the food, the gravity, the air, and everything else that was different from his. She had expected him to be weak and helpless and constantly in need of care. She had been wrong about all of it. Daniel Cole adapted to life on the faster than anyone had predicted. The gravity was 20% stronger than Earth, which should have made him tired and slow. Instead, he moved normally after just 2 weeks. The air had less oxygen than he was used to, which should have left him gasping for breath. Instead, he breathed deeply and evenly as if he had lived here his whole life. He learned the language in 6 weeks. Not just the simple words for everyday conversation, but the complex formal speech used in the royal court. He memorized the names and ranks of over 200 nobles. He studied the history of the empire going back 10,000 years. He asked questions that surprised even the oldest scholars. The servants who worked in the palace began to like him. He was polite to everyone, from the highest advisor to the lowest cleaner. He remembered their names. He asked about their families. He thanked them for their work. This was strange behavior for someone of his rank. Nobles rarely noticed servants at all. But what puzzled most was his morning routine. Every day, without fail, Daniel woke up before the first sun rose. He went to a private chamber that had been given to him for exercise. He stayed there for 2 hours. Then he bathed, dressed, and joined the Queen for breakfast. When she asked what he did in that room, he smiled and said he was staying in shape. The guards who watched him reported what they saw. He ran on a machine that created a moving floor. He lifted weights. He performed strange movements that looked like dancing but were too slow and controlled to be actual dance. He hit a heavy bag with his fists and feet. He stretched his body into positions that seemed uncomfortable. The weights he lifted were light. The running was slow. The movements were simple. The guards laughed among themselves. They called him the weak husband. They said he was like a child pretending to be a warrior. One day, out of curiosity, went to watch him. She stood outside the room and observed through a window that Daniel did not know about. He was in the middle of his routine. He wore simple clothes that left his arms and legs bare. Sweat covered his body. His face was calm and focused. She watched him hit the heavy bag. His strikes were fast but not powerful. A child could hit harder. She watched him lift weights. The amount would not challenge even the weakest of her guards. She watched him run. His pace was steady but unremarkable. And yet something about the way he moved caught her attention. Every motion was precise. There was no wasted energy, no unnecessary movement. He flowed from one exercise to the next like water flowing in a stream. His eyes never lost their focus. His breathing never became chaotic. He was completely in control of his body at all times. She also noticed something the guards had missed. Daniel was not struggling. He was holding back. When he lifted the weights, his muscles did not strain. When he hit the bag, he pulled his punches at the last moment. When he ran, he was jogging, not sprinting. He was doing a fraction of what he could do. Why would he hide his true abilities? Filed this observation away in her mind. She did not ask Daniel about it. She wanted to watch and learn more before she revealed that she knew his secret, whatever his secret was. As the weeks passed, she spent more time with her human husband. They shared meals together. They walked in the palace gardens. They attended court functions as a couple. She found that she enjoyed talking to him. Daniel had a way of listening that made her feel heard. When she spoke about the challenges of ruling an empire, he did not offer empty words of praise like her advisors did. He asked thoughtful questions. He shared ideas from human history that sometimes applied to her problems. He was honest with her in a way that no one else dared to be. One evening, they sat on her balcony and watched the three suns set. "You are not what I expected," admitted. Daniel smiled. "What did you expect?" "Someone desperate, someone afraid, someone who would beg for my protection and my favor." "Would you have preferred that?" "Thought about it?" "No," she said. "I think I would have grown tired of such a person very quickly." "Then I am glad I disappointed your expectations." She laughed. It was a genuine laugh, something she rarely allowed herself. Daniel had a talent for making her drop her royal mask. Around him, she was not the queen of an empire. She was just herself. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course." "Why did you really volunteer for this? You gave me an answer before, but I do not think it was the complete truth." Daniel was quiet for a long moment. The suns had set and the sky was filling with stars. Finally, he spoke. "My father was a soldier," he said. "He told me that the mark of a good man is not what he does when everyone is watching. It is what he does when no one sees. It is the sacrifices he makes without expecting thanks. I volunteered because my people needed someone to take this risk. Most humans saw it as a death sentence. They saw living among aliens who could crush them as too dangerous, too lonely, too permanent. And you did not see it that way." "I saw it as an opportunity," Daniel said. "An opportunity to learn about another species. An opportunity to show that humans are worth knowing. An opportunity to maybe, just maybe, turn enemies into friends." Studied his face in the starlight. "Do you see us as enemies?" "I see you as potential," Daniel said. "Potential for war, yes, but also potential for partnership. The Inhumans have so much we could share with each other. It would be a waste to destroy that potential through fear and misunderstanding. You think highly of humans, she observed. I think highly of all beings who try to be better than they were yesterday. Felt something warm in her chest. It was an unfamiliar feeling. She had taken many lovers over her long life, but she had never felt this particular warmth before. It was not desire. It was something deeper. Respect, perhaps. Or the beginning of something she did not yet have a name for. Your people think you are weak, she said quietly. The servants, the guards, the nobles, they all look down on you because you are human. I know. Does it bother you? Daniel turned to look at her. His gray eyes reflected the stars. What people think of me does not change who I am. I know my own worth. I do not need others to confirm it. That is a strong way to think. It is a human way to think, he said. We have had to learn it. Throughout our history, we have always been underestimated. By our environment, by predators, by each other. We survived anyway. We rose anyway. We reached the stars anyway. Being underestimated is not a weakness. It is an advantage. Did not fully understand what he meant, but she stored his words in her memory. Someday, she thought, she would understand. She did not know that the day of understanding would come sooner than she expected. In the shadows of the Empire, enemies were gathering. Nobles who hated the alliance with humans were making plans. Assassins were being hired. A storm was coming. And when it arrived, everything thought she knew would be shattered. The night of the attack began like any other state dinner. The great dining hall of the palace was filled with 300 guests. Nobles from across the empire had gathered to celebrate the anniversary of coronation. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting rainbow light on everything below. Music played softly. Servants moved between tables, carrying plates of exotic foods from a dozen worlds. Queen sat at the head table, dressed in royal robes that shimmered like liquid silver. Daniel sat beside her in the formal black suit that humans wore for important events. He had grown comfortable at these functions. He knew which nobles to greet warmly and which to treat with careful distance. He knew the proper words to say and the proper way to say them. Advisor sat at a nearby table, watching the human with cold eyes. He had never accepted this marriage. He believed that humans were vermin who did not deserve a place in the empire. He had spoken against the alliance many times, but the queen had ignored his warnings. Tonight believed everything would change. He glanced at a servant who stood by the wall. The servant nodded once very slightly. The signal had been sent. The assassins were in position. Daniel noticed the exchange. He did not show any reaction. He simply continued eating, continued smiling, continued being the calm human husband everyone expected him to be. But behind his gray eyes, his mind was working. He had noticed glances throughout the evening. He had noticed the servant who did not quite move like a servant. He had noticed the guards at the doors who seemed tenser than usual. Something was wrong. He could feel it like a storm coming over the ocean. He leaned close to, "Your Majesty," he whispered, "I think we may have trouble tonight." She looked at him with surprise. "What do you mean?" "Advisor has been watching us all evening. He just signaled someone. I think there may be an attack." His golden eyes narrowed. She trusted her advisors to keep her safe, but she also trusted Daniel's instincts. In the months they had spent together, she had learned that he noticed things others missed. "What would you suggest?" she asked. Before Daniel could answer, the lights went out. For 3 seconds the hall was completely dark. Guests screamed. Chairs scraped against the floor as people stood. Then the emergency lights came on, dim red globes that cast everything in bloody shadows. And then the killing began. They came through the windows, 12 figures wrapped in black, moving faster than eyes could follow. They were a species known across the galaxy as the most dangerous assassins money could buy. Their bodies were lean and covered in scales. Their hands ended in claws that could cut through metal. Their eyes saw in the dark. Their reflexes were 3 times faster than any. The palace guards drew their weapons, but they were too slow. The flowed through them like wind through grass. One guard fell with his throat opened. Another dropped with 3 claws in his chest. A third managed to fire his weapon once before it took his head from his shoulders. Screams filled the hall. Nobles ran for the exits, but they were not interested in nobles. They had been given a target. They moved toward the head table where the queen sat. Rose to her feet. She was a warrior queen. She had trained since childhood in the fighting arts of her people. Her 4 arms could crush a skull. Her legs could kick through stone. She would not run from these assassins. But there were 12 of them. They moved faster than she could track, and they were all coming for her. "Get behind me," she commanded Daniel. Whatever happened, she would protect her husband. He was weak. He would die in seconds against these killers. But Daniel did not get behind her. He stepped forward. "Daniel, no," said, "you cannot fight them." He did not answer. His eyes were fixed on the approaching assassins. 3 of them had broken away from the group and were rushing toward the head table. Their claws gleamed in the red light. Their teeth were bared. They moved so fast they seemed to blur. Then Daniel moved. What happened next would be remembered in the Empire for 1,000 years. The human who everyone thought was weak and slow crossed 15 feet in less than a heartbeat. His body was a blur. He met the first before it even knew he was coming. His palm struck the assassin's face with a sound like thunder. The skull shattered. Its body flew backward and crashed into a table. The second slashed at Daniel with its claws. Daniel was not there. He had moved to the side faster than the assassin could see. His elbow drove into the spine. The crack echoed through the hall. The assassin fell and did not move again. The third tried to jump back, tried to create distance. Daniel caught its arm in midair. He twisted. The arm broke. He pulled the assassin toward him and drove his knee into its chest. Bones shattered. The dropped. 3 assassins down in 2 seconds. The remaining 9 stopped their advance. They stared at the human. This was impossible. Humans were weak. Humans were slow. Humans were prey. What was this creature that moved like lightning and struck like a falling mountain? Daniel stood between the assassins and the queen. His breathing was slow and even. His face was calm. There was no fear in his eyes. There was nothing in his eyes except cold, clear focus. "Your turn," he said. They attacked. All 9 came at once. They were the best killers in the galaxy. They had murdered kings and generals and warlords. They had never failed an assignment. They believed that numbers would overwhelm this strange human. They were wrong. Daniel did not fight like he did not rely on strength alone. He used speed and precision and something else, something they had never seen before. He used their own force against them. When one slashed at him, he redirected the claw so it cut another assassin instead. When one leaped at him, he stepped aside and let it crash into a pillar. When 2 attacked together, he moved between them so fast that they wounded each other trying to hit him. He knew exactly where to strike. He hit joints. He hit nerve clusters. He hit pressure points that dropped the assassins like puppets with cut strings. Every blow was perfect. Every motion was necessary. There was no wasted energy, no extra movement. 37 seconds. That was how long it took. When it was over, 12 assassins lay dead or dying on the floor of the dining hall. The greatest killers in the galaxy had been destroyed by a single human. Daniel stood among the bodies. His suit was torn. There was a shallow cut on his arm where one claw had grazed him, but he was standing. He was breathing normally. He was not even sweating. He turned to look at. "Are you hurt?" he asked. His voice was gentle, as if he had not just killed 12 beings with his bare hands. The queen could not speak. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She stared at the man she had married, the man she had thought she knew, the man who had hidden something incredible from her and from everyone else. All around the hall, surviving nobles stared in silence. Guards who had arrived too late to fight stood frozen. Servants trembled against the walls. Advisor was pale as death. His plan had failed. His assassins were dead. And the human he had dismissed as weak had just proven himself more dangerous than any warrior in the Empire. Daniel walked back to. He moved normally now, no longer a blur. He was just Daniel again. The kind human with calm gray eyes and a gentle voice. But would never see him as just Daniel again. She had seen what he truly was, and she had no words for it. "I think," Daniel said quietly, "that we need to talk." The palace was in chaos. Guards rushed through the halls. Medical teams carried away the wounded. Nobles demanded answers. Servants whispered in corners. The news of what had happened in the dining hall was spreading like fire through dry grass. A human had killed 12 assassins. Impossible. Everyone knew it was impossible. Humans were weak. Humans were fragile. Humans could not match the speed and strength of the deadliest killers in the galaxy. And yet the bodies lay on the floor. And yet the human stood unharmed. Queen dismissed everyone from her private chambers. She sent away her guards, her advisors, her servants. She wanted to be alone with her husband. She wanted answers. Daniel sat across from her. His torn suit had been replaced with simple clothes. The cut on his arm had been bandaged, though he had barely let the medical staff touch him. He looked the same as always, calm, patient, untroubled, but could not see him the same way anymore. "What are you?" she demanded. Her voice was harder than she intended. She was confused and afraid and angry, and she did not know how to handle these feelings. "No human could do what you did. Our reports said your species is weak. Our scientists measured your bone density, your muscle mass, your reaction speed. You should not be able to move like that. You should not be able to hit like that. What are you?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. He seemed to be choosing his words carefully. "I am human," he said finally. "Completely human, nothing more." "That is not possible." "It is the truth." Stood and paced the room, her 4 hands clenched into fists. She wanted to break something. She wanted to understand. "Then explain. Explain what I saw tonight. Explain how a human killed 12 with his bare hands." Daniel nodded slowly. "The reports your scientists made were based on average humans. Humans who lived comfortable lives. Humans who never pushed their bodies to the limit. Those reports were accurate for what they measured, but they did not measure what humans can become." "What do you mean?" "May I show you something?" "Stop packing, show me." Daniel stood and walked to the window. The night sky was full of stars. Somewhere among those stars was Earth, his. "Humans evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every day," he began. "We call Earth a garden world because it is beautiful, green forests, blue oceans, clear skies, but the truth is darker. Earth was a death world." Frowned, "A death world?" "Yes. When humans were young, we had no claws, no fangs, no armor, no venom. We were soft and slow compared to the predators that hunted us. We should have gone extinct. Every logic said we would die. But you survived." "We did more than survive," Daniel said. "We became the apex predators of our planet, not because we grew stronger than the creatures that hunted us, but because we refused to give up, ever, no matter what." He turned to face her. His gray eyes were intense in a way she had never seen before. "Human bodies have something that most species lack. We call it the second wind. When other creatures reach their limit, they stop. Their bodies shut down, they collapse. But humans can push past that limit. Our hearts can beat until they burst. Our muscles can work until they tear. Our minds can stay focused through pain that would drive others mad. We can choose to keep going even when our bodies scream at us to stop." Listened in silence. "And our bodies adapt," Daniel continued. "When we stress our muscles, they grow back stronger. When we stress our bones, they grow denser. When we train our reflexes, they become faster. With enough time and dedication, a human can transform their body into something far beyond what your scientists measured. How much can you transform? I spent 15 years training, Daniel said. Military service taught me discipline. Martial arts taught me technique. I studied how to fight against opponents who are stronger and faster than me. I learned where the weak points are on every species I might face. I trained my body until my reflexes became automatic, until my strikes became precise, until my endurance became considerable. Sat down again, her legs felt weak. You hid this, you pretended to be weak. I did not pretend to be weak. I simply did not show my full abilities. Why would you hide such power? Daniel's expression became sad. Because strength invites fear, and fear leads to violence. Humanity learned this lesson many times throughout our history. When people see someone as a threat, they attack first. They do not wait to see if the threat is real. They strike while they believe they have the advantage. He walked closer to her and knelt so their eyes were level. If humanity had shown the galaxy our true potential, what do you think would have happened? The dozen other powerful species out there, they would have seen us as a danger. They would have united against us. They would have tried to destroy us before we could become too strong. We would have been forced into a war we might not have won. Understood. In her long rule, she had seen this pattern many times. Rising powers were always crushed by established ones. It was the way of the galaxy. So you pretended to be harmless, she said. We chose to be peaceful, Daniel corrected. There is a difference. We did not want war. We wanted trade. We wanted alliance. We wanted to grow alongside the other species, not in spite of them. Showing our strength would have made that impossible. And the marriage? The marriage was genuine, Daniel said. His voice softened. I was not sent here as a spy or a soldier. I was sent here to build a bridge, to show your people that humans can be trusted, to find common ground between our species. But you are a warrior. I am many things, a warrior, a scholar, a diplomat, a husband. He took her hand gently. His grip was light, but she now knew that hand could shatter bone. I never lied to you. I simply did not show you everything. The queen looked at their joined hands. His skin was so soft compared to hers. His fingers were so small. And yet this hand had killed 12 of the most dangerous assassins in the galaxy. What else can humans do? She asked quietly. What else has your species hidden? Daniel smiled, but there was no joy in it. Humans can do many things when pushed. We can survive injuries that would kill others. We can adapt to environments that should destroy us. We can learn and change faster than any species we have encountered. But our greatest ability is not physical. What is it? We do not give up, Daniel said, ever. When humans decide something is worth fighting for, we fight until we win or until we die. There is no middle ground, there is no surrender. If your empire had gone to war with humanity, you might have won the first battles. You might have destroyed our fleets and burned our colonies, but you would not have broken us. We would have kept fighting, for years, for decades, for centuries if necessary, until one side was completely destroyed. Felt a chill run through her body. She had conquered many species. She had seen warriors of all kinds, but she had never encountered anything like what Daniel was describing. We wanted peace, Daniel said again. We still want peace. Tonight changes nothing. The humans who hired those assassins will be found and punished by your laws. The alliance between our peoples can still succeed, but you needed to know the truth. You needed to know what you are allied with. And if I had not seen your true strength, would you have hidden it forever? Daniel was quiet for a long moment. I hoped I would never need to show it. I hoped that peace would come easily, without violence. But when those assassins came for you, I made a choice. Your life mattered more than my secret. Something in those words touched deeply. He had exposed himself to protect her. He had thrown away his greatest advantage because she was in danger. You saved my life, she said. You are my wife, he replied simply. What else would I do? The queen had no answer. She sat in silence, trying to understand the man she had married. The universe had just become a much more complicated place. The weeks following the assassination attempt changed everything in the empire. Advisor and 17 other nobles were arrested for treason. Under questioning, they confessed to hearing the assassins. They had hoped to kill both the queen and her human husband, blaming the attack on human spies. They had planned to use the tragedy to end the alliance with Earth and return to the old ways of conquest. They were executed publicly as law demanded for traitors. Daniel watched the executions without expression. He did not celebrate their deaths, but he did not mourn them either. They had tried to murder his wife. They had paid the price. The story of what Daniel had done spread across the empire like wildfire. At first, many refused to believe it. A human killing 12, impossible. The witnesses must have been confused. The reports must have been exaggerated. But there were too many witnesses, too many recordings from security devices, too many nobles who had seen the human move like a demon and strike like a falling star. The evidence could not be. The attitude toward humans began a shift. Servants who had once looked down on Daniel now bowed lower when he passed. Guards who had laughed at his exercise routine now watched him with respect and perhaps a little fear. Nobles who had ignored him at court functions now sought his attention, eager to be seen speaking with the human who had saved their queen. Daniel accepted the change with quiet grace. He did not brag about what he had done. He did not demand new privileges or titles. He continued to be the same calm, thoughtful person he had always been. This made the respect him even more. Queen changed too. She began to study humanity with new eyes. She requested all the reports her intelligence services had gathered about Earth. She read human history, human philosophy, human art. She learned about their wars, their heroes, their failures, and their triumphs. What she discovered amazed her. Humans had survived ice ages that froze their world for thousands of years. They had survived diseases that killed half their population. They had survived wars where they slaughtered each other by the millions. Every time they rebuilt. Every time they grew stronger. Every time they reached higher. They had started as weak creatures hiding in caves. In less than 10,000 years, they had built civilizations, split the atom, and reached the stars. No other species in the galactic records had risen so fast from so little. And they had done it not because they were strong. They had done it because they refused to accept weakness as their fate. Also learned more about Daniel specifically. She requested his full record from Earth. She learned that he had been decorated 3 times for valor during his military service. She learned that he had once carried a wounded friend 30 miles through hostile territory to safety. She learned that he had nearly died twice, once from a training accident and once from a disease that had no cure. Both times he had survived when doctors said he should not. Both times he had recovered when science said it was impossible. One evening she found him in the palace garden. It was the same garden where they had watched stars together months ago. Daniel was sitting on a bench, looking at a small blue flower that grew in a pot beside him. "What is that?" asked sitting beside him. "A forget-me-not," Daniel said, "a flower from Earth. I asked the embassy to send seeds. It reminds me of home." The queen looked at the tiny blue petals. The flower was so small, so fragile, and yet it bloomed in alien soil under alien suns, far from everything it had known. "It is beautiful," she said. "It is stubborn," Daniel replied. "This species of flower should not be able to grow here. The soil is wrong. The light is wrong. Everything is wrong, but it grows anyway. It refuses to die." Understood that he was not just talking about the flower. "Daniel," she said carefully, "I have been thinking about what you told me, about humanity, about what your species can do." "Yes. I was afraid at first. After the attack, after I saw what you were capable of, I was terrified. Not of you specifically, but of what humanity represents. If one human can do what you did, what could millions of humans do? What could billions do? Daniel nodded slowly. That is a reasonable fear. But then I read your history, continued. I learned about your wars, your suffering, your triumphs, and I realized something. What did you realize? Humans could have chosen to be conquerors. With your abilities, your determination, your refusal to surrender, you could have carved an empire across the galaxy. You could have done what they did, what so many species have done. We could have, Daniel agreed. But you did not. You chose peace. You chose to hide your strength instead of using it. You chose to trade instead of take. Why? Daniel was quiet for a long moment. The three suns were setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Finally, he spoke. Because we have seen what conquest does, he said. We have been both the conquerors and the conquered throughout our history. We know the cost of war better than any species in this galaxy. We know that victory through violence is always temporary. The defeated rise again. The cycle continues forever. He turned to look at her. Humanity wanted something different, something better. We wanted to build relationships based on trust and mutual benefit. We wanted to prove that strength does not have to mean destruction. We wanted to show that the strongest thing any species can do is choose not to fight when fighting is possible. Felt tears forming in her golden eyes. She had lived for centuries. She had ruled an empire that had crushed hundreds of worlds. She had believed that strength was the only thing that mattered in the universe. This human, this small and supposedly weak creature, had just shown her that she was wrong. I do not know if I can change my empire, she said softly. There have been conquerors for so long. It is all we know. Change takes time, Daniel said. It does not happen in one day or 1 year. It happens one decision at a time, one choice at a time, one person at a time. Will you help me? Daniel smiled and took her hand. That is why I am here. Looked at the man she had married. She had thought he was a burden. She had thought he was weak. She had been so blind. I think I am beginning to love you, she said. The words surprised her as much as they surprised him. Did not speak of love easily. It was considered a weakness, a vulnerability. But looking at Daniel, she did not feel weak. She felt stronger than she ever had before. I have loved you for months, Daniel admitted. I just did not know how to tell you. They sat together as the sun set completely and the stars came out. The same stars that had watched over their first conversation now watched over this one, but everything had changed. In the years that followed, the alliance between the Empire and humanity grew stronger. Trade flourished. Cultural exchanges brought new ideas to both species. Slowly, gradually, they began to change. They did not stop being warriors, but they learned that there were other ways to be strong. And throughout the Empire, the story was told of the alien queen who had married a human she thought was weak. The story of how that human had shown his true strength not through conquest or domination, but through protection and love. The story of how two different species found common ground and built something greater than either could have built alone. Daniel and ruled together for many years. He aged as humans do, his hair turning gray and his face growing lined. But his eyes never lost their calm determination. His spirit never weakened. And when he finally died, peacefully in his sleep, held his hand and told him that he had changed her world. She ruled for centuries more after his death, but she never forgot him. She never forgot the lesson he had taught her. True strength is not found in the ability to destroy. True strength is found in the choice to protect. And that choice, more than any other, is what makes humans worthy of the stars. The end.